the law of the cycle and how it applies to the human being. Well, we're talking about cosmic cycles. Well, how do they apply to the human? The human has cycles also. Okay? As a matter of fact, cycles exist all throughout all scriptures. That's how important they are. Okay? Now, the energy of the cycle is the God of the cycle. Okay? So let's take a situation where, in the mythology, the God of the cycle says to his servant that he was leaving. Okay? And he wasn't sure when he was coming back. But we're dealing with now, as he leaves, a new cycle comes in. Okay, the old cycle goes, a new cycle comes in. But they are connected. Okay? And so the God's servant he's walking down the road, he has a stick over his shoulder with a bag of clothes attached to it. Well, these are the clothes of the God that left. Okay? Why? Why is he doing this? The servant, why is he doing this? He's doing this because when a new cycle comes in, some of the old comes with it, supports it. And so this servant is carrying that support to the new cycle. Okay? And this happens throughout all cycles. When a new cycle comes in, some of the old cycle comes with it. Now, talking about cosmic cycles, we can talk about the precession of the equinoxes. Okay? This means a new cycle's coming in. And then we go with the zodiacal signs. A new cycle's coming in. But when that new cycle begins, it begins with some of the old cycle. So the old cycle, okay, supports the new to some extent. It's like the father supports the son, who is newer than the father. The son of the father is with the son, supporting the son. But the same way with recession, the same way with all the cycles. Okay? So with precession, it overlaps the old cycle. When the new cycle comes in, it overlaps the end of the old cycle. Okay? So now, we also have, for example, the snake with its tail in its mouth. This is the same principle that we just talked about with precession and the God who left and so forth and so on. We're talking about, it's the same principle. All these principles are the same, even though they appear different, they explain different, etc. So anyway, we have the snake with its tail in its mouth. But what goes on here? The snake's head represents the new cycle. You see, the tail of the snake represents the old cycle. At least part of it. So there's an overlapping. The snake's head overlaps the tail. So the new cycle overlaps the old cycle. The tail is the old cycle. You see, this is how these icons can be explained in terms of cycles. Okay? And so, how does this apply to the human being, for example? You know? Well, let's take a young man, a young boy. He finishes high school and he's going to college. The high school is the old cycle. The college is the new cycle. Okay? But what that boy learned in high school, he will use in college. And so this is the overlapping. Some of the high school stuff is going to be overlapped by the college. The new cycle. College will be the new cycle. Okay? Let's take a young woman. When she becomes an adult, which is a new cycle, we have the young woman, we have the adult woman. Okay? Well, these are two cycles. The young woman is the old cycle when she becomes an adult. But she brings some of the knowledge and information that she learned in her young years over to her adult years. So that's an overlapping. It's the same as the cosmic cycle, okay? Precession of the equinox. It's the same thing, because the new cycle will bring with it some of the old cycle. You see? This is the law of the cycle as applied to the human. So when a young woman, for example, gets married, she will bring into her marriage some of the things that she learned as a young woman before she got married. So it's an overlapping. The married woman will fall back on some of the things that she learned before she got married and apply them to living a married life. So now we're applying the cycle to the human. So let's take this young woman, let's say that she conceives and has a child. Oh, now there's a new cycle, the family life. Now she will apply to her family and her child some of the knowledge that she acquired when she was a young woman, before she even got married or before she had a child. This is the cycle, the same thing, same as the cosmic cycle. We're dealing with a principle. It is the law of the cycle. Okay? And so this is what's in Scripture. The cycles are all through Scripture. You see? When one God goes and another God comes in the mythology or in the Scripture, we're talking about a cycle. Okay? So now, Jesus, let's say, was in the Christian tradition, Jesus was the old cycle. Okay? And he becomes the Christ. But he brings in with him some of the things that he did or learned or the knowledge he had, etc., to the new cycle. Remember, he said, in the old cycle, he said he spoke in parables. You know what I mean? But now he's talking clear, the truth, etc., the truth of the Father, how to get to the Father, etc. It's a new cycle. The Christhood then is a new cycle. The Jesus part of the situation is the old cycle. But Jesus becomes the Christ. And so now he brings in some of the old, some of the new. So that's saying some of the old, some of the new is a cycle. They're talking about cyclical activity when they say something old and something new. That's what it actually means. We're dealing with a cycle. The new cycle and the old cycle. And the old cycle always supports the new cycle. That's where the overlapping comes in. Okay? The new cycle is supported by the old cycle. And this happens throughout life. Okay? It's the way it is with the law of the cycles. Okay? So the old cycle is higher because it brings in some of the new. The new cycle is higher because it brings in some of the old. Excuse me, you know what I mean? And that new cycle, just like in precession of the equinox and other cycles, it starts with the old. It overlaps the old cycle. That's how it's supposed to be. And that's how people can use it in life. Okay? Well, that's the way it is. You know? If a person gets a new job, he can call on past situations, past energy to support him in that job. It's a cycle. And it's always an overlapping. Okay? Because the new brings with it some of the old. Okay? So here we have, we talked about precession, we had, but the incoming cycle retains some of the energy of the outgoing cycle. Yeah. This is the way it is. Okay? This is the way it is in our world. You know? And these cycles can explain many riddles. Okay? So now we have an incoming cycle. Okay, it's a female cycle. Okay, yeah, we entered into a new cycle now. We're talking about the female cycle. Okay, the cycle of the motherhood. But we were in the fatherhood for a long time. We still are to an extent. But remember now, the new cycle of the motherhood, the female cycle, okay, is going to overlap the cycle of the fatherhood. So the father of the cyclehood then should support the cycle of the motherhood. That's the way it is now. The fatherhood should support the motherhood because the fatherhood, okay, is the old cycle, the motherhood is the new cycle. So it's the same principle. And these principles go on for eternity. So it is. They never stop. Okay, folks. You know something now about the law of the cycle and how it is applied to the human being.